Good morning, security gang, and welcome back to the CyberHub Podcast. James Azar here. I'm the host and Chief Information Security Officer. Thank you all for tuning into this morning's show. We've got a packed one this Wednesday morning, February 18th, 2026. I always got to look up and see the date, right? Like, it's so awkward, but you think I would know the date going into the show. I don't. And every day, like when you're a practitioner, every day is a new day, and it kind of just meshes into another day. And I share a little bit about my life here. I didn't before, but many of you ask, and so I share. We're at the tail end of baby Azar numero tres, and so we're it's when it's sleepless for your best friend, it's sleepless for you as well. And yeah, it's a part of life, and being a practitioner, there's a lot of things that cause CISOs to toss and turn night in and night out. And so it does, kind of all comes together. I'm tired. Won't lie to y'all. Tired. It's exhausting. It's quite the journey, right? I love it. I love every minute of it. I'm not complaining. I'm blessed. And I'm proud to be able to bring you this morning's show, because here's what we've got to talk about today. For once in quite some time, I didn't check it, but I'm fair to say probably since the start of the year, we don't have any data breaches to report today. What we do have to talk about is Chinese hackers exploiting the Dell zero-day, password managers exposed under malicious server conditions, API risk exploding with AI adoption, spyware used against activists in Kenya, and so much more on this morning's show. So let's get the ball rolling. I've got my double espresso here. It's fantastic. Look at that foam line right there. Look at that. It's just, can't see the smoke coming out of this one, but it is piping hot. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. So good. So good. Question for the audience watching, and please comment below and let me know. After dinner, if you enjoy a hot beverage, are you a coffee, tea, or alcohol? Like a good port or something like that. Curious. I had that debate last night. Curious to know what people think. All right. Let's kick this off. Chinese hackers are exploiting Dell's zero-day since at least the mid-2024. We start with a serious one where Chinese-linked threat actors have reportedly been exploiting a Dell zero-day vulnerability since at least mid-2024, well before any public disclosure. The flaw did affect Dell enterprise infrastructure components, allowing attackers to gain remote access and even establish persistence in targeted environments. What makes this one particularly concerning is the dwell time. Months of silent exploitation takes you back to SolarWinds, right? Months of silent exploitation. This tells us this wasn't opportunistic scanning, but rather this was strategic targeting. Dell devices are embedded deep in enterprise networks, often sitting in management or even infrastructure layers. That risk leads to long-term persistence in enterprise infrastructure through vendor-level vulnerabilities. And mitigating this one includes one of many things: to conduct retroactive log analysis going back at least 12 months if you're keeping it for any anomalous Dell management interface activity in your environment. The zero-day they were taking advantage of, CVE 2026-22769er. It's a Dell recover point for VMs. And it's essentially a maximum severity hard-coded credential vulnerability in the Dell recover point for virtual machines. It affects versions 6.0.3.1 HF1 and prior. And again, hard-coding credentials. I'm sorry. You would think that would be something that a company like Dell would know better of. Now, I'm not judging Dell, but at some point you have to look at quality controls. Look, we all make mistakes. And when we're trying to keep up with business as a security team, it's very hard to keep up with the pace of business. Business moves very, very fast. Security moves very, very calculated. And so there's always a gap. And good security teams know how to close that gap, or at least mitigate that gap, to keep it within arm's reach. Other teams and large enterprises have to deal with much more. That's why there's the title of the BISO in a lot of organizations, or you see now kind of like the chief product security officer and a product security team, and kind of the splitting of the office of the CISO, or the establishment of the office of the CISO. where you kind of have the office of the CISO and you have your chief security officer and you've got your kind of chief CISO, which is your IT security lead, and you've got your product security lead, and you may have your network security lead or application security lead or GRC. And these roles are evolving because the CISO role encompasses so much in organizations like Dell, or when you think of Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft is the perfect example, right? They've essentially built 3 CISOs for every line of business, one addressing essentially kind of like the BISO role, the customer facing role, the community engagement, the kind of requirements coming from the people who pay them, one internal kind of managing those separate teams in the different divisions. So every kind of division has its own CISO, their own team, their own policies, and then one on the product side, essentially running product security. And that model that Microsoft kind of wrote is a really great model to look at when you're dealing with a large organization like Dell or VMware or so many others, because really that's the model. And you kind of understand how much is on someone's plate when you can employ 15 CISOs at Microsoft at that level, right? And so just keep that in mind, folks. That's really, really important there. All right. Hackers are targeting Iran protest supporters in a cyber espionage campaign. The next story here is the cyber campaign targeting supporters of the Iranian protest. Threat actors believed to be aligned with the Iranian state interest, the IRGC, are targeting activists, journalists, and even diaspora supporters through phishing, credential harvesting, and even malware implants. This is a cyber repression technique using digital tools to monitor dissent and silent opposition. The context here is pure political instability and internal dissent. Cyber operations are being used as surveillance infrastructure, with the risk here of weaponizing phishing campaigns, targeting politically sensitive communities globally, which could eventually impact your enterprise, as your enterprise could fall from someone there. Now, do you tell your people not to get involved with it? No. They're free to do what they want to do on their free time, and the people of Iran deserve to be free of the tyrannical Iranian Islamic regime that has been occupying that country for 47 years now. It's time for the people of Iran to be free. How, that's a different story, but they deserve it. They're going out to the streets and they're getting killed, and not a college campus has one encampment to defend the poor women and young generation of Iran that simply wants to be able to dance on TikTok without a hijab on and not get thrown into jail or killed for that. And if you don't believe me, do some research. To mitigate risks like this within your enterprise, you should look at at-risk communities, deploy hardware-based security keys instead of SMS-based MFA. And by the way, this is one of the great ways for us to reach and build bridges in our organizations. If you know you have people that come from a specific country who are going through something and you know they may be a target, helping them harden their personal devices goes a long way to helping them feel like they've got someone on their side helping them. You don't always have to agree, but in our line of business, we need to build friends, not adversaries, within our businesses, and this is one way to go about it. Spain is ordering VPN providers to block the La Liga piracy sites. Spain ordering NordVPN and Proton VPN to block access to La Liga piracy sites. This is a major policy shift. Courts are now pushing VPN providers to restrict traffic at the provider level. This is raising big questions about jurisdiction, privacy, and the neutrality of VPN infrastructure. Now, while framed around piracy enforcement, the broader implication really here is regulatory reach into privacy tools, with the risk being erosion of VPN neutrality and precedent setting content restrictions, which could eventually roll through the entire EU. And folks, find yourself a government like the European governments that love to regulate every part of your day and everything you interact with. They just love to, because you're not good enough to know what's good for you. We are the government. We know what's best for you. You can't piracy soccer games from La Liga. That hurts the only thing in our economy that actually works in Spain. Entertainment, sports betting. You can't do that. We have to protect you. Hey, VPN neutrality. We were not worried about what precedent this sets at all. Don't let anyone watch a Barcelona Real Madrid game through piracy. VPN providers, do it now. Now, if you rely on VPN infrastructure, this is where this gets a little risky for you. You should be assessing legal jurisdiction risks tied to the provider's operating country and the potential implication that could come to your own VPN providers within your business should this become something, because this happens here, then the snowball starts. And then all of a sudden you're blocking stuff that you need for business because this government decides that they don't want you to see it. Whenever you infringe on something that for government in that type of thing, it always comes back to haunt you. All right. API threats are expanding as AI increases blast radius. Security Week reporting that API threats are growing significantly, amplified by AI integrations. APIs are now deeply interconnected across SaaS platforms, AI agents, automation pipelines, and even data lakes. When an API is compromised, the blast radius extends far beyond a single application. AI agents that can autonomously trigger workflows make this even more dangerous there. Risk being API token abuse, enabling large-scale lateral movement across cloud ecosystems. To mitigate this one, implement strict API rate limiting and token scoping to enforce least privilege to the API layer of your business. We'll move to the next one. Flaws in popular VSCode extensions are exposing developers. And again, developers are ground zero for this. Researchers uncovering vulnerabilities in the popular VSCode extensions that could allow attackers to inject malicious code into developer environments. This is another supply chain adjacent issue. Developer workstations are increasingly becoming initial access vectors because they hold credentials, API tokens, and deployment pipelines. The risk being developer endpoints compromise, leading to production environment infiltration. To mitigate this one, require code review approval for any new IDE extension within your enterprise environment. Let's get those CVEs out of the way. Also for this one, CVE, the issue is impacting live servers. CVE 2025 65715, code runners 65716, markdown preview enhanced 65717, and Microsoft Live Preview does not have a CVE. Over 128 million downloads, which means this does exist in your environment if you're using VS Code. This is coming from our friends at Aux Security, so go check it out there as well. All right, let's move to our next story here. Password managers are vulnerable under malicious server scenario, with this one coming as a new reports highlighting that password managers could be vulnerable to vault compromises if users connect to a malicious server that mimics legitimate infrastructure. Now, while the password managers remain safer than the reuse of passwords, this research is underscoring the importance of server trust validation and endpoint integrity, with the risk being vault exposure under server spoofing or infrastructure compromise scenarios. To mitigate this one, you should be enforcing certificate pinning and domain verification protections in enterprise password manager deployments across your enterprise. Can it do firmware backdoors infecting devices? This one really kind of hitting the ground running, folks, as you need to pay close attention to this one. Researchers have discovered a firmware level backdoor that's embedded in the Can-Do devices. It allows remote control and data exfiltration. Firmware backdoors are especially dangerous because they operate below traditional OS level monitoring. This shifts the attack surface into hardware supply chains, with the risk being persistent device level compromise beyond OS visibility. To mitigate this one, implement firmware integrity validation checks during device provisioning cycles and make sure you're actually watching data going in and out of there. Credit card fraud and abuse is huge, but now it's even coming in a new campaign. Let's talk about this one. If you're in the fintech business, hold up, listen to this one. Credit card fraud campaigns are resurging, leveraging compromised e-commerce platforms and even phishing kits. Attackers are now using automated bots to test stolen card numbers against checkout systems, often monetizing within minutes, with the risk here being automated card validation attacks, draining payment systems, with the mitigation being to deploy transaction velocity monitoring tied to card verification attempts. If you haven't done that on your payment endpoints, you should be doing it right now. They're going to, look, AI is going to give them the path to essentially buy 100,000 credit cards, go to a bunch of stores, try to use them, and once they know the cards that work, they're going to abuse them, and you're going to be part of it, right? So monitor your endpoints for these types of attacks. And now if you're a payment company, you ought to provide the service, right? This is a great opportunity for CISOs or product security folks at payment platforms to really go in and offer this as a service. Build the mitigation, offer it as a value to your customer, build that partnership that really brings a long-lasting relationship where they understand you're not just taking the 3%. You're not just taking your processing fee. You're also being part of the solution to help make sure that the money they take is legitimate. All right. I'm no fans of Citizens Lab at all. For those who don't know, I think Citizens Lab in Canada, for everything they say they do, is absolutely garbage because they primarily target Israeli spyware makers or Western spyware makers, but they never really go after the Chinese, the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Italians, the Brits, and the Germans, and everyone else. They're just hyper-focused on one place. Garbage of an organization. Absolutely garbage. So with this story here, they're saying that spyware used against activists in Kenya was using Celebrite. Reports are indicating that Celebrite-linked spyware was allegedly used in Kenya to target an activist. This is highlighting how commercial surveillance tools are being deployed beyond criminal investigations into political targeting or otherwise. The geopolitical undertone is clear that digital surveillance is increasingly privatized and exported globally. Yes, it absolutely is. It always has been. Spy comes from somewhere. People used to spy on each other, used to listen in all sorts of ways. Now with spyware, you have a phone, and if you're an activist somewhere or you're political, you should understand that your phone is not private anymore. Any other idea of it would be false. The Chinese built an entire firewall to make sure that people in China can't communicate and do anything outside of it. They spy on Chinese people outside of China regularly. Citizens Lab has yet to find the conscience to actually do that. But when a government acquires a spyware tool from an Israeli company and uses it for the purposes of the said government, you'd rather go against the spyware maker than the government itself. And that shows me everything I need to know about Citizens Lab, which is it's a garbage political organization that's an absolutely shameful organization to begin with. Speaking of shameful, a 47-year-old man linked to the Phobos ransomware has been arrested in Poland. And let's get into this one. According to Poland Central Cybercrime Bureau, the suspect in Poland was linked to the Phobos ransomware operation. Phobos has been responsible for attacks targeting SMBs and local governments globally. Arrests like this are obviously demonstrating international cooperation, and ransomware ecosystems remains decentralized and resilient, but this does take one player off the chessboard there. So there's that. The suspect has been accused of selling, distributing, and operating the Phobos ransomware, was extradited from South Korea to the U.S. in late 2024. That's the Russian national. So we'll see where this one goes. But again, another good bust for the good guys, and we'll take it. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, with all the latest. Until then, make sure to subscribe, follow, share, like, and comment. Go check out our website at cyberhubpodcast.com for all the latest. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.